Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's podcast. In our last episode, we discussed the tips and strategies for reading comprehension, focusing on how students can enhance their understanding and accuracy while reading. In this episode, we'll shift our focus to verbal ability section, exploring how it sharpens language skills and how it helps students in IBSAT exam. We are delighted to have today Dr. Indu Prabha Pathak ma'am, the faculty and area coordinator soft skill at IBS Gurgaon. Ma'am, it's a pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be a part of this conversation.
Now, for better understanding, we will be moving to class with Smartboard. So, starting off with the first question, ma'am, why is the verbal ability section in the IBSAT exam is so important, and what key skill does it assess in a student?
Well, I believe verbal ability section is of paramount importance, especially for IBSAT aspirants, as it contains highest weightage. Out of 200 questions, 50 questions come from verbal ability section. So even if you are not very sure about your performance in quantitative ability, reasoning, still a good score in verbal ability section can significantly boost your percentile. Coming on to the second part of your question, it also assesses your communication skills, as the section comprises of the topics such as vocabulary, synonyms, antonyms, parajumbles, idioms and phrases, which leads to the success in your GD, PI and presentations. Apart from that, it is also very scoring and time efficient, which are short questions which are quick to attempt with good preparation.
Thanks for explaining so clearly, ma'am. So, moving on to second question. Ma'am, denotation and connotation often appears in the IBSAT exam, and while I was preparing for the exam, I had this query that how can a student differentiate between a word's literal and implied meaning?
To answer to your question, let me first tell you the difference between denotation and connotation. So as you yourself mentioned that denotation is literal meaning and connotation is emotional meaning of the word, implied meaning. If we look at this example, she finally returned to her home after years abroad. So literal meaning is obviously place of residence, and the word home fills with warmth and comfort. Connotation, emotional meaning is belonging, family, love. So the basic difference lies in literal and emotional meaning of the word. Now, how you can improve and how you can differentiate between connotation and denotative meanings. First is always look for figurative language such as idioms, metaphors, exaggeration, symbolic words. If we look at this example, time is running out, meaning is implied. Running out is an idiom which means it is implied, not literal. Also, you can check if the literal meaning sounds illogical. Now in this example, he stabbed me in the back. This cannot be the denotation as it implies betrayal. The literal meaning is not betrayal.
That is really a smart tip, ma'am. So moving on to our next question, that is contextual vocabulary questions test how well students understand a word through usage. Ma'am, what can help them identify the right meaning from context?
Well, again, a very important question. To answer to your question, let me share examples. Now, if you look at this example, choose the word most opposite in meaning, sagacious. Now, wise, clever, intelligent. All these words, they mean somebody who is intelligent. Now, only foolish is the word which has opposite meaning to it. Therefore, the antonym of sagacious should be foolish. Another example, ephemeral. Now, eliminate the wrong option first. Permanent, eternal, lasting. All these words convey same meaning. Therefore, the right option would be fleeting. So, the best way to understand the synonyms and antonyms and give the right response is eliminate the wrong option first and then give right options.
Thank you for the explanation, ma'am. Now, moving on to our next question, that is, idioms and phrases make language more expressive. Ma'am, how can students learn and recall them effectively during preparation?
Well, a very good question, Kajal. Now, for those students who are struggling with idioms and phrases, I would like to suggest a few strategies. First is always form clusters based on themes such as emotion idioms, money idioms, work idioms. For example, over the moon is an emotional idiom. Then cost an arm and leg is related to money idioms. Back to the drawing board is a work idiom. So this is one way through which you can cluster the idioms based on certain themes. Another strategy which you can apply is focus on high frequency idioms and use in sentences. For example, burn the midnight oil, rule of thumb, these are most commonly used idioms. So if you master these most commonly used idioms, it will certainly give you an upper edge. Another strategy would be to create quick visual associations. If you create a visual association of a certain idiom, for example, break a leg, picture someone who is wishing good luck. So that also gives you, helps you in remembering that particular idiom. Another strategy would be to maintain an idiom journal and learn at least 5 to 10 idioms per day. Also, do mini quizzes daily. So that ways you can definitely improve your idiom and phrases preparation.
Thank you for the smart tip, ma'am. Now, moving on to our next question, that is, odd one out questions also appear frequently. Ma'am, how can student quickly identify the word or sentence that doesn't fit in the group?
How to identify odd one out question? First strategy could be look for a common theme. Now, if we look at this example, apple, banana, orange, these all are fruits, and carrot is the odd one out as it is a vegetable. Also look for part of speech mismatch, quickly, silently, happily. Again, you can clearly identify that the odd one out is beauty. Check for the meaning, tone of the sentence. Now, if in this sentence, joyful, cheerful, delightful, these all convey happy emotions, and miserable convey sad tone. Generic versus specific, you can also see the odd sentence out of these four combination: rose, lily, jasmine. These all are the types of flowers, and here it is only flower. Check for category: lion, tiger, leopard. These all belong to cat family, and camel is odd one out. So these are certain strategies through which you can identify odd one out questions.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing your valuable insight on verbal ability. I'm sure our student will find it extremely helpful. To all the aspirants watching, remember, consistency is the key. Stay focused, stay confident, and keep on improving every day. All the very best.